Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It is Toni Talks time, Monday, the 9th of May. Thank you so much for joining us. And I am really pleased to be welcoming Irma Gomez Cruz, who is one of our wonderful clients for Visionary Women and for our Quantum Woman Mastery Program. And Irma, have you been working with us about a year now, maybe?
Yeah, about 9 months probably, or a bit longer. I don't know. Yeah, probably nearly a year.
It seems like quite a while now, so that's really good. Irma runs a company called Spanish Lessons York, and actually I am a client of Irma's as well, although I'm not a very good client. It takes me a long time to learn the Spanish, but just before we carry on with the interview with Irma, I just wanted to thank our sponsors for Toni Talks today, which is the Aspire to Lead programme. And Aspire to Lead is part funded by the Department of Work and Pensions and the European Social Fund, and is part supported by Beyond 2030 Limited and Aspire iGen. And it's all about women in business and the gender pay gap and sort of helping women to raise up the ranks in leadership. So thank you to our sponsors for that. So Irma, as I said, thank you for joining me. Really great to see you. First of all, let's talk about you. What is it that you inspired you to set up your company, Spanish Lessons York, in the first place?
Well, I really love teaching. I think it's one of those things that I have always enjoyed. I've done it since I was about 19. And yeah, that's a very long time ago. And, teaching different types of things. But then Spanish was the most recent one that I wanted to teach because my first language is Spanish. And living in an English-speaking country and finding out that people wanted to learn Spanish, I thought, yes, I can do that. And I wanted to set up something that gave me the flexibility to look after my young child that was very young at the time when I started. And he just went for very short hours, very short mornings to kindergarten. So yes, I wanted to do it for myself, for having an income, for after having a baby and being with such baby for such a long time, I wanted to be more like in back to be myself, have that type of fulfillment of another part of me that was a little bit in the back, because I knew it was not going to be forever to look after a young child. So now he's growing and will carry on growing.
Won't stop growing.
Won't stop growing. So same for myself, I think.
Yeah. So it was about putting you to the forefront again and thinking about what it is that you wanted. So how long have you been running the business now, Irma?
It's 4 years and a little bit.
So and you still loving it? You still?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I still love it. I still really enjoy creating the materials and then suddenly finding more. I mean, I like to do my research before every lesson as well.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy the research part of what I'm going to present or what are the typical questions I have from a specific person or a group.
Yes.
So I try to anticipate that. So be fully prepared for when the question comes. And if I don't know the answer, because of course I don't know the answers of everything, I like to do the research and then come back the following session and go through it.
Yeah. So what was it that you did before, and what made you decide that, self-employment or running your own business was the next step for you?
Well, I come from a family that are self-employed. So they were self-employed since I was 15. So I did help my dad at the time when I was in high school. And I saw how difficult it is, to be honest. So how difficult it is, but also how you can get like a lot of fulfillment and you get to do what you want in a way. I think the challenge every time is finding the right clients for your business, going into the right places and providing a service that they are after. So
Yeah.
I think that's one of those things. I did have a job in a big corporate company that allowed me to travel, and that was really, really good as well, because it gave me more experience in dealing with different type of groups and cultures. And even in, I speak Spanish, and it was in some Spanish speaking countries, but it was like I was saying the same thing, really.
Yeah.
Using different words, but also not just the words. It was more about the culture in the company, and so on. So yes, my corporate life was, compared to my now professional life, it was a short one, I think.
Okay.
It looks short because, if I have been working since I was 19, and that was about 5 years only. So it seems now a bit short.
Yeah.
Knowing that I've been running this business for 4 years now.
Yeah.
So in one more year, it would be the equivalent of my corporate life.
Yeah.
So I find
it goes fast, doesn't it? It's quite funny thinking about that. Yeah.
Exactly.
I wish I could say mine was the same amount of time. My corporate life feels like a lot longer. I've been in business now for just over 10 years, but yeah, it's still a long time, but it still doesn't add up to the number of years I spent in corporate life just yet. A little bit older than you,
just
Irma.
yet, yeah. No, and then I worked in higher education as well. So I think I've always been like in touch with educational establishments and with training and education, presentations, being in front of people, researching, presenting, things like that I enjoy.
And with the business now, so what would you say, to any people listening or watching about, some of the barriers that you have to overcome, and some of the, the issues and problems that you might have had to overcome in those 5 years?
Well, I think first is like trying to get the right persona for who it is that you want to teach. Just before I had my child, I used to run a program to help people to set up businesses. And I always sat in all the sessions and learned from small businesses in York and where were the top tips and all that. And I knew that you cannot sell that. You can sell to anyone and everyone, because that's not true.
Yeah.
So I think anyone wanted to set up a business, they have to have that clarity. So I think at least for mine, it was like someone who wants to learn Spanish, who is an adult, who has time in the mornings, because the lessons are going to be in the mornings in this specific area of York, at the times, and also that they had an interest in it for different reasons. They want to travel, they want to relocate, or they want to just have fun or meet other people. So after the first group, I started to narrow down a bit more, like who is really interested, because a lot of people could raise their hand. I want to learn. But once you start talking to them, it's like, do you really want to learn? Or you just want to find out a bit more? And I think the client situation is the hardest.
Yeah, it really is, because you do, especially when you've just set up in business. And I know that I did this, you think, oh, well, I need to earn some money. So anyone could be a client, and you kind of take on any client because you think, oh, I've got a client. And then suddenly you realize you might have a handful or a pocket full of clients that you think, actually, they're not quite right for the business. They're not quite right for me. And why did I take that business? Yes. So it takes us a little while to sort of get to realize that actually it probably would have been safer to not take on some clients. And because we're small, the minute you take on a client, then that takes a lot of your time, and then you can't market and do your sales and everything to get new clients. So you end up in this sort of trap, really, that you've taken on people that you think, actually, it's not really what I want to do.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
So I think it's a big issue. So the other issue that especially women struggle with in business is charging and their price points. Now, I know we've spoken about this before, Irma. So
we want to make money.
Yeah, exactly. We're in business to make money. Everybody is, but we struggle to talk about money, and I don't know what that necessarily is about women in business, but how do you sort of overcome some of that? Have you got any tips or tactics that you use?
Well, very early on when I started offering my lessons, a lady and taking the tips from the small businesses in York that were like,
Yeah,
be clear about your price, because that's the
yeah.
first thing people want to know to make a decision. Or it
Mm,
might not be the first thing, but it can be one of the deal breakers in doing business with you or not.
yeah.
So it was like, position yourself, not too cheap, not too expensive, but the right, in the market,
Mm,
probably average price. I was
yeah.
like, okay, so let's have a look. So that's what I did to start with. Um, and then one of the ladies that inquired about my lessons, and she said, okay, so can you give me more information? And in the full information, I said, well, the course is called this, it will cover this, and it will cost this. It's here, there, and there. And she just got back to me saying, I really like it that you just didn't let me anything to ask again, especially
Yeah.
the price. That clarity is like, I write the check, or what do I do? Do I do a bank transfer? And I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. So since that comment, that gave me really a lot of confidence
Mm,
to just say, someone wants to learn Spanish and they want to know what. So now I go like, well, you can cover this, we can do this, and that, it could be tailored or it could be generic. You can follow a book, but I prefer to tailor my materials.
yeah.
And the prices start at this point,
Yeah.
depending
Yeah.
on what you want. If you want a group, if you want individual, and the price is always there in the inquiry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And you're
sometimes
really
they,
confident when you say it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and sometimes it's easier probably for them to just either say thank you, yes, let's do it, or I don't hear back. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's the price or the whole idea.
Yeah.
But but it is, I have inquired about certain things myself. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm also a customer.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I always think like, yeah, sometimes I just go like, oh, okay, after all that information, now I have a clear idea. So
Yeah.
if their website, for example, is not clear enough and I ask for further
Mm,
information and then I get it, then it's like, oh, okay, that's fine.
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I try not to hide the prices.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's nothing worse than that, is there? You go onto
Yes.
something, you're trying to find the price, and you go through reams and reams and reams, and the price is not there. And I'm
It's
like,
not
and
there.
then there's no contact number. It's so frustrating. And I think, like, for any of us, whether we're male or female, is when you're looking to buy something, you need to know, well, how do I talk to you and how much does it
Yes,
cost? And then I can make an informed decision. Yeah,
exactly,
yeah. So
exactly.
I think that's a really good tip, Irma. Then we just need to be confident, and like when we're presenting what it is that we deliver or that our service is, and to build in that, and the price is this, and
Yes.
kind of leave it at that. Yeah, that's a really good tip. So do you find that, and it's another thing particularly women suffer from, because generally we're doing the lion's share of looking after our families, our partners, extended families, children, etc. For some of us, it's also grandchildren. So how do you manage your time so that you give your business what you need, but you've also got time for yourself and time for the family and everyone else that you look after?
Yes, yes. It's tricky because at the time when I want to be working, for example, one day I feel like very concentrated, inspired, and I want to do things. And then suddenly it's like, it's pickup time. So I have to stop this because I have to go and collect the
Mm.
child. Because what would happen? I mean, he's still very young. He cannot just come back by himself. He's
Yeah.
still, yeah, I still need to go and pick him up. So it is like, then I have to stop. And then I have to restart again at another point
Mm.
after all needs of everyone had finished, and then I can carry on doing it.
Mm. Yeah.
Some days are easier than others.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the moment, the business and family, they still overlap a bit in terms
Mm.
of timings.
Yeah.
But I have found that, getting organized, knowing the times, and then having been at your course, definitely lots of different techniques that you
Yeah.
can apply to just be more productive,
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
the time in a very productive way.
Mm.
So there's a little bit of I don't waste so much time anymore
Yeah.
when I have to
Yeah.
crack on with things and they get done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the family is something enjoyable. I mean, for me, it's very enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's good, isn't it? But I think sometimes when we don't do, we don't look at our days and think about, well, what is it we need to achieve? What are the most important things we need to achieve? And then carve out, as you know, we call that deep work, carve out some deep work to focus, intensely on what it is that you need to achieve for your business and for the family. Then it's really hard, and like you say, they meld into one, and then you do get frustrated, when you're doing one thing and you think you should be doing something else, and you're almost damned if you do, damned if you don't. So I think that's really important that we think about, how we structure our days to get the best out of them, and then we get really focused on what it is that we need to do. It's so easy to get distracted, and I know that it's, a lot of us are addicted to our emails and, picking up our phones every 5 minutes. And before we know it, a whole day's gone and we've gone down some rabbit hole on Google or YouTube or whatever, and actually we've not done anything that we need to do. So, discipline, hard work and discipline. Get into those habits.
That's right.
So in terms of that, actually, so what are some of the really good habits that you've got in your day now? And what are some of the things that you've had to sort of really look at and say, that was a bad habit and I needed to stop doing it?
Yes. Bad habits is, I know I have to start doing something, but then I just carry on chatting with someone else. That has nothing to do with either the business or the family or anything. So, but because I want to get distracted. So before it was like social media, I could just spend, some time on social media. And my excuse was like, oh, I need to put some ads. And I never did the ads. I was just on social media, wasting my time. But then I found myself that, of course, now that we are socializing more, and that if I find someone, it's like, oh, this person wants to listen to me, let's chat. So I just suddenly start chatting, and then suddenly it's like, oh, half an hour is gone. And so yes, I think it's part of that balance. The lack of connection that we had in the last 2 years, and then suddenly going back into it again, like in person.
You're enjoying it too much.
I am exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, oh yeah, I need to. Well, I need to stop.
You are a people person, so
I am. Yes.
So isn't it?
Yes.
You enjoy it. That's good.
That's right. Yeah, so, but it distracts me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but you know that's your thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I need to start and finish. With a bit more of, okay, yes, we had a chat. Yes, I'm enjoying it, but it doesn't have to be that long.
Yeah, no, it's so easy done, isn't it? Absolutely. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, do you have any, if you were speaking to someone who was thinking about starting their own business, or was, just been in their business for a little while, what sort of tips or advice, or what would your number one thing be to sort of inspire them and move them along?
I think it has to go down to the financial commitment that you want to do. If you are in a job, you know that you get your monthly payment or your weekly payment or however often you get paid, but it's a constant. And when you're self-employed, you're not getting that. So if you want to carry on having that monthly or however often the income, before you start, I would say have a buffer, so that you think, this is what I can do. I can still have this money that was my monthly income while I figure out how this works being self-employed, especially if no one has been self-employed before. So then having that financial position to start, that is not going to make you too anxious or disappointed that the money is not coming in. Because that could be, for some people would be, in my case, it was, yes, I was dedicated to my child, and my husband is still working, and he's, the main earner at the moment. So that's kind of my buffer in a way. That I don't have to think about if he doesn't have an income, if he was self-employed and I didn't have an income. So how are we going to, pay the bills? For how long can we sustain this? And so if you're not in that position, that you have to pay the bills, and then suddenly I mean, we had the pandemic as an example.
Yes. Yeah.
If you don't have a certain amount of money that would give you the minimum to carry on with your life and payments and commitments, then yes, I would start with that financial position.
Yeah, it's a good one
to start.
And
then the inspiration, because then it's like, of course you want to do this, and find out if someone wants to buy it. And then offer it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that, again, it's one of the things that our research shows us is that, women are much more financially risk averse, because, we are aware of, we've got family commitments, we've got maybe children to look after and the bills to pay. And if you're not in a position where you can, go into what can be a bit of feast and famine when you run, especially when you start your business, once you get going, obviously you can start to even that out and start to pay yourself on a regular basis. But it can be, especially when you're on your own, feast and famine, because you're out there trying to get the business in. The business comes in, you deliver it, and then you're like, oh shit, I've got no business coming in. And so it can be a bit like that. So yeah, you're right. It's about how do you sort of manage and become aware of what the situation is and where you need to be. So I know a lot of women do, kind of a bit of a side hustle. So I suppose that's, in a way, that's what you did when you were, looking after Diego, and then looking at starting your own business. So it was a gradual thing.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
And I just switch it off and start the new one.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I know that other people that I know very close to me, they started with that bit on the side on top of the job that they already had, until they were very confident that that was definitely going to work. So they quit their job and then went full on the self-employment side. And that's another way of doing it.
Absolutely. Or like I did, I took a compromise agreement, a kind of redundancy, and I used a bit of time and a bit of money from that to help start my business and just get going. But if you're not careful, that could soon run out, and time really runs very quickly.
Very quickly.
But yeah, I think at the end of the day, what would you go back to working for someone else now?
I don't think so.
No. I think what we do is we make ourselves.
Exactly. I think it would have to be like on a contract, like okay, this is the specific work that you want me to do, so that's fine. But going back into the corporate world again, I don't know. Probably not. I would like to grow more what I'm doing. Because that was my whole idea. It could be Spanish lessons York, it could be French lessons York, it could be Spanish lessons Harrogate. It could, it could just start spreading, into different areas. And then because my second objective is to help other people. Women are good at languages, so a lot of it is one of those things in our brains, isn't it? That we have that ability. And so if there are other women who would like to do what I'm doing, eventually it could be alongside family and things like that. So not that I will franchise, but I would encourage.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds brilliant.
So, and eventually employ.
I was going to say that, I think once you get into running your own business, you kind of make yourself unemployable, because you get used to just having it is a luxury, and something that I'm very I don't take for granted. I take as granted that you can do what you like when you like, and you can say no to something you don't want to do, whereas it's not quite the same when you're working for someone else. So before we sign off, then I just wondered, are there any books that you have read that you would recommend to other women? I know you mentioned something earlier.
I was saying earlier that the books that I have read recently more of are about child development. And really, the more I learn about child development, the more I understand many adults. Yes, it's true, you know. So there's one. Do you want just the one book?
Yeah, have you got one that you would say that taught me the most or gave me the best tips?
It gave me like great tips, how to talk so children listen and listen so children talk, or something like that is the title. Yeah. Okay, and it is very practical, and it really helped me to communicate better with my husband.
Well, of course. We all know that the level that most adults operate at. Actually, I when I was in one of my corporate roles, we were doing some work on communications and advertising, and one of the comms guys said to me that the average adult in the UK communicates at the age of 11. So actually, you know, you're not wrong at all, that, you know, most of us are communicating on a daily basis as if we were 11 years old. So yes. We'll have to make sure we leave some notes in the notes below so that people can find that book.
I will. Yes, I have it somewhere here. I should have grabbed it.
Yep. I will put that in before I share it. And so thank you so much for taking some time out today on it's actually not a bad sunny morning in Yorkshire.
It's very nice.
One of the things that I wanted to make sure that you do is that, like, tell us, Irma, where we can find you and Spanish Lessons York.
Yes. So yes, I'm Irma Gomez Cruz, and my website is www.spanishlessonsyork.co.uk. You can find all sorts of details there about my courses, about me. I also have a few things on Facebook. So it is also Spanish Lessons York on Facebook, and that'll be me. I'll be sharing a bit of my Mexican trip that I recently did.
That sounds great, Irma. Well, thank you so much for coming on as our guest today. And I'll leave you by saying hasta luego.
Hasta luego. Muchas gracias. Thank you for having me, Toni.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. Bye.